Hello, everyone. I hope you had a great weekend and are ready to do some math on Monday. We are going to be on Unit 5, page 13 today. And this is the first page of our Unit 5 review because we have our test on Thursday. So we're going to be reviewing and studying some of the skills that we learned in this unit, starting with our DIN. So pause the video here and try that DIN review and preview question for me. Alrighty, hopefully you guys paused that video and we can go ahead and get started on this. If we want to factor the following binomial, this is something that we learned last week on Thursday, Friday. First, we learned how to use the box method to factor a binomial, but we also learned how to use how to do it without a box method or an area model method. So I'm going to go ahead and take my two coefficients or constants, 36 and 60. We're going to find the factors of both of these numbers. For 36, I can have 1 and 36, 2 and 18. I'm definitely going to need some more space here, so let me add that in first. Also going to have 4 and 9, 6 and 6. I can have 3 and 12. And I believe that's all of them. And now for 60, I want to kind of try to find those similar factors or those common factors. So I can have 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20. I can have 4 and 15. I could have 5 and 12. There's quite a few for this number here. I can have 6 and 10. I believe that's it. So our greatest common factor that we found is going to be our 12 and 12. And then we're going to use that greatest common factor to find the binomial that we will be multiplying by to get back to that original binomial. So I know I'm going to have a plus sign in the middle. I know that I'm going to need that x from the 36x. 12 times 3 gets me to that 36x, and 12 times 5 gets me to that 60. And that is our final answer. If I scroll down to the preview question, we have kind of another skill that we learned in this unit, which is simplifying expressions. And also substitution, evaluating our expression using a certain number for the variable, okay? So we're going to do both parts. We're going to try to simplify first. And remember, we only want to combine like terms. So I see that the 2x, the negative 5x, because we can say that's a plus negative 5, and the 10x all have that variable x. So that's what I'm going to combine first. 2 plus a negative 5 is going to give me a negative 3. But then I'm adding 10. So I should have a positive 7 when I put all 3 of those together. I can't forget my x. And then the 6 and the 18 are also like terms. We can add those together and we should get 24. So this is our final answer for the first half of this question. We have simplified the expression to its simplest form. Now we actually need to evaluate the new expression, and they want us to use the value x equals 4. So we're going to take that same expression, but I'm going to replace my x. I'm going to substitute with the number 4. I like to show mine in parentheses, but we know that we're multiplying those and then adding 24. And so this will equal 28 plus 24. And eventually we get 52. All right, so what we just did is 3 out of the 4 skills that we learned in this unit. We did substitution, okay, plugging in a value. We did simplifying, okay, taking an expression and making it into its simplest form. And we just practiced our factoring. And then the very last skill we did was distributive property in the first place, right? Using the box method or the area model method, whatever you like to call it, to simplify an expression first, or going backwards to use to factor that binomial. So those are the 4 skills that we're going to try out next. Okay. I just put 4 more examples for us to kind of practice and make sure you remember those 4 things. And then you'll be working on the independent practice that kind of combines a lot of those for the rest of class today. Starting with our first skill, substitution, we're going to try that one more time together. It says evaluate the given expression using the given value for x. So anytime we see an expression with a variable and it also has a value for that variable, they're telling us that they want us to substitute. Okay, we should automatically see if they're giving us this expression and also the statement when or if the value equals a certain number, they're telling us to take that expression and substitute that value. My x is becoming a 2, and I'm adding 46. When I do that, 15 times 2 gives me 30. Still adding 46, can't forget about that part. And I should get 76. Okay, so that's one basic example of substitution. If we try a basic example of simplifying expressions, I chose this on purpose because it has some multiplication in there, it has some division in there, and then we can also see the addition and subtraction. So it has all 4 for us to review. When we're simplifying something like this, we want to do that multiplication and division first. So we have a 2x times 4x. It's actually going to give us an 8x. The 16 is not being multiplied or divided, so I'm going to keep that the same for now. And then I have a minus 24x divided by 8. Or we can change that to a plus negative. And so when I divide those 2 numbers, remember we want to focus on the coefficients first. Negative 24 divided by 8 is going to be a negative 3 or a plus negative 3. And then we keep that variable on the end. And just like I did with the 16, the 12 right now, it's still by itself. I'm actually going to leave that alone, except for I'm going to change the subtraction to a plus negative using my leave change rule. Now it looks more like the one that we did for the din. So now we can go ahead and find those like terms to combine. I have an 8x and a negative 3x, which is going to give me a positive 5x. And then I have a 16 and a negative 12, which is going to give me a positive 4. And we have simplified that as much as we can, because now these are unlike terms and cannot be combined. Skill number 3, like I said, was our distributive property. So it is simplifying in a different way, a very specific way, using that area model method or the box method. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up. We put our outside number on the side of our box and our inside expression on the top of our box. We are multiplying to get those answers. And so 9 times 3x gives me 27x. And 9 times 6 will give me a 54. So my final answer for this question is a 27x plus 54. Okay, we kind of simplified in a more specific way whenever we see a product of a binomial and some other value outside those parentheses. And then skill number 4 that we learned was doing the opposite. So using an area model method or the box method backwards to factor, or trying to do that factoring without the area model method like we did on Friday. My drawing here is getting a little scribbly. We have a 72 and a negative 81. I'm going to make sure we keep that negative in mind because we're adding a negative. And I'm going to find the factorizations of these two numbers. For 72, there's quite a few. We can have 1 in 72, 2 and 36. We can have 6 and 12. We can have 8 and 9. And there might be a couple I'm missing there, but I think I've already got my GCF in there. We're going to see that in just a second. For 81, there's a couple that I can think of right from the start. 1 and negative 81. And then you can also think of 9 and negative 9. Okay. The reason I'm putting those negatives on is because one of the factors has to be negative so that negative 81 is created. Okay. And I think we can see that our GCF is actually the positive 9. I'm going to put that outside my parentheses. And then we're going to use those other factors that we found. 9 times 8 is what gets us to the 72. We need an x on that 8 so that it turns into a 72x. And then we can say that we're adding a negative 9, or you could even just say minus 9, because now that 9 times a negative 9 will get us the negative 81. There we go with that one. So those are the 4 skills: substitution, simplifying expression, distributive property, and factoring. And now I'm going to let you guys do some of the practice on your own. And just as a reminder, A lot of the questions ask us to use more than one skill to solve a problem with multiple steps. So for example, practice number 1, they're just asking you to substitute. They give you some values to put in for those variables. Practice number 2, they're asking you to simplify, which could involve distributive property, and it could also involve kind of the simpler simplification of just multiplying, dividing, adding, subtracting. But it could also have both. We might have distributive property multiple times, and then at the end you have to simplify even further by combining those like terms. It could be like question 3, where you have to simplify first and then evaluate using a certain value for the variable. Or factoring, that's kind of a one-step process. Find that GCF and create your product using a new binomial and another value. So just keep that in mind as you practice these, and try as many as possible. And also think about our exit ticket. Okay, after we review these 4 skills, which are your strengths that you feel comfortable with, and which are you not so comfortable with that you may need some help reviewing before the test. After that exit ticket, you just complete that quick self-reflection that's very related to those 2 questions I just read. And then we have 1 activity from the choice board on campus for today. You guys are good to go.